It's a privilege today to present this award to Brian McKeon, a member of the class of 1985. Who has served for more than 30 years in all three branches of the United States government. At one point in time, I would say that that's a feat less challenging than being a triple domer, but in this day and age, Brian, I think you'd say it's a feat more challenging than being a triple domer with all three branches. After graduating from the Georgetown University Law Center, Brian served as a law clerk in the Eastern District of Virginia before spending 20 years in the United States Senate, including 12 as chief counsel to the Democratic members of the Committee on Foreign Relations and concurrently as deputy staff director for 2 years. During the Obama-Biden administration, Brian served in a number of national security positions, including as Deputy National Security Advisor to then Vice President Joe Biden from 2009 to 2012, as Deputy Assistant to the President, Executive Secretary, and Chief of Staff of the National Security Council from 2012 to 2014, and was Principal Deputy Undersecretary for Policy from 2014 to 17, and concurrently served as acting undersecretary for the final 7 months of the administration. Wow, right? That took a lot. In March of 2021, he was unanimously confirmed as the Deputy Secretary of State for Management and Resources, where he's the Chief Operating Officer and responsible for the oversight of a global platform of embassies and consulates and the budgets of the State Department and the U.S. Agency for International Development. Additionally, and there is more, he's a 2-time recipient of the Department of Defense Medal for Distinguished Public Service, the nation's highest civilian honor awarded by the Secretary of Defense. Brian's wife was unable to join us tonight, but here to celebrate with him are 2 tables full of his 1985 classmates and some of their spouses. And I'll just add a little color commentary as an aside. I think in my time at the Alumni Association, this may be the only dinner where we have recipients where their friends called and said, could I come to the dinner? Out of respect and honor for each of these men that will be honored tonight. That's right there, that alone says a lot. So please join me in welcoming this year's Cavanaugh Award honoree, Brian McKeon.
As I say at the State Department, you don't have to stand for the Deputy Secretary. So thank you very much, Dolly. This is really an amazing honor, and it's definitely not one that I ever expected. So at the outset, I want to thank a few people, starting with the first-year roommate, Dr. Rick Green, who nominated me and didn't bother to tell me. So then Dolly called me one day, left a voicemail. Now, I didn't know Dolly. I don't give any money to the university, so I knew she wasn't calling to get money from me. So I was wondering, why the heck is she calling me? So I was pretty surprised to be told that I'd been nominated for and been awarded this award. And Rick and I, we were first-year roommates. His dad grew up in my hometown, so we had a common bond. And even though he lives on the left coast and I live in Washington, we've stayed good friends, and really grateful he and his wife Nancy are here tonight. We've already thanked the class of '85 at our 2 tables. I'm really happy to see so many friends and some live in this area or Chicagoland, but a couple of people have come from a great distance, including somebody who was in Turkey the day before yesterday or the day before yesterday? Yesterday, yeah. Came from Turkey to be here and then is going onward back to somewhere else in the States. My wife was not able to come. She had surgery 10 days ago and is hobbled from that knee surgery, and she's not in a position to travel right now. So I'm really grateful that my Notre Dame, some of my Notre Dame family is here with us. I need to thank my own family, of course, starting with my wife, Liz, whose love and support and advice have been really key factors in any success that I've had and has made me a better person. And I have to thank my parents, both who are now deceased. They were both children of the Depression. My father lost his mother in 1931. His father couldn't take care of him, so he and his sister went to live with another couple, pretty common story in the 1930s. My mother's parents both died at a younger age. She was adopted by another couple. I knew I couldn't get through this talking about them. So they taught us, me and my 5 siblings, the value of hard work and perseverance. My father was a very proud Irish American, rooted not only for Notre Dame, but any college that was Catholic. We grew up near Syracuse. I followed Syracuse sports. He took me to football and basketball games, but he rooted against Syracuse when they were playing Boston College or Villanova. So he had it a lot harder than I did. He hitchhiked from upstate New York to Detroit to go to the University of Detroit, now Detroit Mercy, worked in an auto factory at night to pay for school, had to stop his studies to go to war, served in the war, and then finished his degree in 1946, and went to law school at Fordham, and worked a couple of jobs there. It's also a tremendous honor to be sharing the stage with Rocky Bleier, and I'm actually very happy I'm going first, because I think Rocky gives speeches for a living, or he used to. And so following a professional speaker would have been hard. But Rocky's courage and grit in recovering from his war wounds to star in the NFL still is an inspiration. I was telling Rocky this story. I remember when I was a kid, I was born in 1964, and so Rocky was the star in the Steelers when I was 10 or younger, 10-ish. And he came to my hometown for a CYO sports dinner or something. I don't remember what it was. And I still remember one of the jokes he told. And it's a clean joke. Reminded Rocky of it. A war joke where he said, his CO came to the unit one day and said, "Great news, guys. We're going to change underwear today. Rocky, you change with Phil. Phil, you change with Bill." I have no idea why that story stuck with me, but it was because I was probably 9 or 10. Yeah. So when I came here in August of 1981, I only had a vague idea what I was going to do with my life. My dad was in politics and law. He was the state party chairman for the Democratic Party for a few years in the 60s, and he was our county chairman for 20 years. And if he didn't have to practice law to pay the bills, he would have been doing politics full time because that was his real passion. So I think it was kind of in my DNA that I was going to do something in government or politics or law, but didn't really know what it would be, and I ended up doing pretty much all of them. When I left here 4 years later, my vision of what I was going to do was not a whole lot clearer. Didn't really have a plan. If you told me that day in May 1985, I'd be standing here after 30 years of government service winning this award, I told you were crazy. There's no doubt, however, that while I didn't know which direction my life would take, I can say with confidence that Notre Dame helped to chart my course. In fact, the university got me to Washington in the summer of 1985 because there was an internship that was paid and funded by the Kellogg Institute for International Affairs, which is now still here, part of the Keough School. And one of the professors who interviewed me, I got sent to intern at a human rights organization in Latin America. And I didn't really have much history studying these issues, so he knew my father was a politician, or in politics, and he looked at me kind of quizzically. "You're Paul's son, and I'm not really sure you're into these issues." But I got the internship anyway, so I have to thank Alex Wilde for overcoming his skepticism of me. So that got me to Washington and got me on the ground, and I started looking for a job in Congress, and got very lucky and hooked up with a third-term senator from Delaware named Biden. And I haven't worked for him continuously ever since, but I've kind of been in his orbit for much of this period and consider myself kind of a Joe Biden lifer. The real seed, though, for what I've done and my interest in international affairs was planted through a semester in the Notre Dame in London program, and a lot of the 85 folks here were in the London program with us. It was a new program. I think we were only the second or third cohort to go. We broke a lot of rules and probably screwed it up for a bunch of people behind us. But it's still a good program. And I come from a small town of 30,000 in upstate New York. My sole international travel had been across the border to Canada for a couple of weekends. Didn't have a passport until we got it to go to London. And it was just unbelievable experience. For me, a life-changing experience to live in one of the great capitals of the world and travel in Europe. And it was kind of light on academics. We had life experience that we were getting. But it really opened my eyes to what was possible in the world of international affairs. At our freshman orientation, I don't know if anybody else remembers this, another strange thing that stuck with me. I still recall a speaker that said, "Don't let books get in the way of your education." We definitely did that in London. There were 2 pubs in the neighborhood. And in those days in England, they closed at 11. So we actually learned the art of social drinking, going at 9:30 or 10 for a couple drinks, which social drinking was not the norm on the weekends here. It was more active drinking. I will be forever grateful to the leaders of the Arts and Letters College for starting this program and for picking me to take part in it. It's also the case, I suspect, that the ethos of this university spurred me to the career that I've had. The commitment to service is an indelible part of the university, embodied by the phrase, God, country, Notre Dame. And at its core, service is about giving back to your community. And on this campus, the sense of community is palpable. You feel it the second you walk on it. And I remember it from the orientation. I remember it from other campus events like Junior Parents Weekend. It's just an embrace that it's kind of an intangible that I can't describe, but I've definitely felt it. My service is not unique. 2 of my close friends have had a life of service, 28 years in the Army. A friend who's here, both of them are here, and the other friend has been the head of United Ways of California for 15 years. I think he's already gotten an award, a different award. The current vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is class of '84, Admiral Grady. There's 2 current U.S. ambassadors from here. Joe Donnelly was a senator from this state, now the ambassador to the Holy See. And Kent Logston, a career foreign service officer. I don't know what class he's in, he's older than me, who's our U.S. ambassador to Moldova, which borders Ukraine. There's 4 members of the United States House who are alumni. My point is, why I'm very humbled by this recognition, I'm representative of a much larger group of alumni, many of whom you might have chosen for this award. I've been very blessed to have a career of service in all 3 branches, as Dolly referenced, in the federal government over the last few decades. I did not do this alone. Nobody does these things alone, and a lot of people helped me along the way. I had a lot of luck, and some of which I would call dumb luck, and making my own luck, and support from a lot of smart and dedicated colleagues. Government is a team sport, so any public official who says, "I did this," is exaggerating their role. It's been pretty exhilarating and occasionally exhausting. 12 to 14-hour days, pretty much the norm in the White House and the Pentagon, sometimes in the State Department. And the era of email and cell phones means your colleagues can reach out and touch you at every hour of the day. Yet I never tired of the majesty of the institutions where I've worked, or the gravity of the responsibilities, or the honor of working in the special surroundings such as the U.S. Capitol, the White House, the Pentagon. I can tell you, walking into the Senate chamber or the Oval Office, or flying on Air Force One, stepping off an airplane in a foreign country with the words United States of America on the fuselage, it's kind of a pinch me moment, and you wonder, how did I get here? And you'd never take it for granted, and the second that you're not impressed by it is the day that you need to leave. So I feel just unbelievably fortunate to have had all these experiences. It kind of gave me a sense of wonder that I'd somehow won the lottery. Even today, when I swear in new Foreign Service officer classes or swear in a new United States ambassador, I get a little choked up reading the oath that we take, which is very similar to the president's oath, but not quite the same. Not to a king or queen, but to a document called the U.S. Constitution. Nor do I ever forget who I work for, which is all of you and our 330 million fellow citizens. Now, I recognize 328 million of them have no idea what we do at the State Department. But that's okay. We're not there for the recognition or the appreciation. They expect us to do work every day to try to secure a safer and more prosperous world. When I left the government at the end of the Obama administration in 2017, and the new team says, "Thank you for your service. Now please leave by January 20th and give us your badge," which is fine. That's the way it works. I was often asked whether I missed it. My answer was, I didn't miss the work because I was really tired after 8 years in the administration, but I really missed the people, because there are just, in our government, at least in the circles I work, but I think across the federal government, a lot of smart and dedicated, decent people. Many of them who were way smarter than me and can intimidate the heck out of me in a meeting. So it's good that I have a high title so that I can deal with some of the intimidating intellects. That's a joke. We shouldn't take this large cadre of career civil servants for granted in our national government. They've been through a lot in the last decade with government furloughs and attacks on their loyalty. In the State Department, we have about 25,000 employees divided between the Foreign Service and the Civil Service American employees. We have about 50,000 local employees who are from foreign countries, who staff our embassies. Foreign Service officers sign up to serve overseas, hence the title Foreign Service. And they live and work in isolation overseas in some pretty tough places. And during the pandemic, they were locked down in their houses in countries with some pretty inferior health systems. And it's just amazing how resilient they have been and continue to do their jobs. Like the U.S. military, our Foreign Service officers change jobs every few years, learning new languages, new cultures, moving their families from post to post, or leaving their families behind if they're assigned to a country where the security conditions don't permit their families to go with them. And we have more than a few of those. I've lived in the same house for 28 years, and I once had the same job for 12, so I don't really understand how people do this, but it's kind of amazing, and I continue to be in awe of it. So I thank you for celebrating my service, but I'd ask you to celebrate the service of some of my colleagues, officers serving in our embassy in Ukraine right now. They're going down the basement every day because the Russians are launching missiles into the Kyiv Oblast. Or in Iraq, where in both our missions in Baghdad and Erbil, Shia-inspired militias are firing drones, not every day, not every week, but a couple times a month. Not always at us, but enough that people go into what we call duck and cover mode. I just got a notice on my phone of an embassy in North Africa went into duck and cover mode because some vehicle rammed through a barrier. So a lot of people living in a dangerous existence without their families. We have officers right now working to negotiate ends to civil wars in Yemen and Ethiopia, working to contain a new outbreak of Ebola, of a new strain of Ebola in Uganda. Officers who are under constant surveillance by Chinese government and Russian government, security services, and in many other authoritarian states. And thousands of others deployed in 180 countries around the world, working to protect our security and to serve you. So on behalf of all of them and all of my colleagues, I thank you for this honor. That's pretty big. Where do you want to go?